Hello, my name is Jeff Downard, and I'm coming to you from sunny Flagstaff, Arizona, to explain a study abroad program being offered in the summer of 2025 between June 5th and the 18th. The program is NAU in the British Isles. We'll be focusing on philosophy, environmental ethics, and marine conservation. I'm starting with in this presentation with the flyer that's been created. You can see that the program provides 3 credits. Students can choose between one of 3 classes being offered: PHI 331, Environmental Ethics; PHI 497, which is Independent Research in Philosophy; or Environmental Sciences 497. I'd like to highlight that ENV 497 has been approved by Environmental Sciences to satisfy the research experience required for our environmental sciences and studies majors. And so students might typically take a course numbered ENV 408, which is really a mentoring research experience. And this is very much like that and will count entirely to satisfy that requirement. What I'll do is explain the itinerary for the program and the activities we'll be engaging in, the things we'll see and do along the way. Starting on June 5th, students will fly from the United States, typically starting from Phoenix, but no requirement to do so, wherever one happens to be, fly from the major airport nearby, into Glasgow. Most flights go through either London or Dublin. And what we'll do is we'll meet at the airport, and then we'll take trains from the airport up to the city through the locks and through the areas that we'll be visiting. Our first stop on the train ride will be in the downtown of Glasgow. The main train station there goes from the airport right to the street where the pedestrians can go through coffee shops and restaurants and other shops. And we'll explore this part of Glasgow before heading further up on our way by train through the locks. This particular train is considered one of the most scenic train rides in the world. And what is shown here is the train made very famous in the Harry Potter films. This train actually does go up through the Hebrides. This particular elevated train ride that's shown in the picture is going up to the Isle of Skye, and we'll be riding on a railway very similar to that up through the locks, heading on our way up to Oban. Oban as a city is considered a gateway to the Hebrides Isles. The city's right on the coast of the main part of Scotland. In the upper left photo, a outdoor gallery is shown. It was built to be an art gallery, but now is used as a public park and looks down over the city, the bay right there, and then right next door, Carrera Isle. And what we'll do is spend the first few days of our trip exploring Oban and the surrounding area. We will kayak, paddleboard, have access to bicycles to see the harbor, tidal pools, estuaries, as well as to explore cultural sites such as the castles and estates dating back all the way to the medieval period and before. We'll have opportunities to visit SAMS, which is the Scottish Association for Marine Science, located right there in Oban, right on the water. And we'll see how they're using, for instance, remote underwater vehicles to study the health of the kelp ecosystems in the area. Ecosystems that we'll be seeing right up close by walking in the estuaries and tidal pools, as well as paddling with opportunities. We have access to snorkeling equipment for the water, including warm wetsuits. And we'll be have opportunities to, for instance, look into the water right from the paddle boards or sitting down on them in a kayak situation. Or for those who are interested in seeing more, dipping into the water and exploring, um, seeing things up close. As we walk around the town and explore by bicycle, we'll see, for instance, the farmers market, cafes and galleries, shops and restaurants, as well as the famous Oban Distillery. While we're visiting, I'll encourage students to pay attention to when we are on program versus when we are off program. On the on program hours, we'll have scheduled activities where we'll be going out together, for instance, wading in the tidal pools, or we'll together visit Sam's. But during other times when we are off program, students will be encouraged to go out in larger or smaller groups, at times alone, if one wishes, to see things of particular interest. So, such as, for instance, if one has a particular interest in the whiskeys made in Scotland, to see the famous Oban Distillery, or for those who are of particular interest in art, to spend more time in the galleries, or those who are interested in the history, to spend more times in the castles or the various historical exhibits. Our itinerary leaving Oban for the next 5 days is to take the ferry to Tobermory, going up through the Sound of Mull, where we'll spend time staying in the town of Tobermory, visiting, engaging with the Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust, and taking guided trips out from Tobermory into the Treshnish Isles. This shows the ferry leaving from Oban, heading up through the Sound of Mull, which is like the ferry that we will take. This is the larger ferry. There are also smaller ferries that we'll have the option to take. And there's opportunities to see from the decks outdoors, dolphins as they're playing in the bow wake, which we have seen, as well as the beauty of the sounds and the waters that we'll be exploring. As we arrive in Tobermory, we'll visit with the Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust, who have been engaging in long-term studies, especially focused on the cetacean species, the dolphins and the whales, but the larger ecosystem, including, for instance, harbor seals and other species that are part of these marine ecosystems. The Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust have been engaged in long-term studies of the health of these ecosystems and the impact, for instance, of creating what are called marine protected areas, which will be one of the things that we're focusing on during the trip. We'll be looking at the impact of MPAs on the health of these ecosystems, and we'll look at the results of the studies by the trust on communication within a pod between individual whales and dolphins, as well as between pods and even across species. They've recorded using underwater microphones these communications, and they're part of a really large worldwide effort to understand how we might interpret these vocalizations within and between species. While in Tobermory, we'll take guided tours taking us out to the Treshnish Isles, including those which are homes, nesting areas for a wide range of migratory bird species, including skuas, gulls, cormorants, as well as famously a very large population of puffins on the Isle of Lunga. And we'll be able to visit this isle, take a small dinghy over from the guided tour boat, and we'll be able to walk and hike along the isle. It's just a couple miles long, but they have designated areas where we'll be able to go right up to a small yellow rope marks the border between where we'll be able to walk and sit, take photographs, and just observe the puffins who are nesting at the top of the cliffs in small burrows. The puffins, in particular, because they are predated upon their nest, their eggs, their young, by gull species, they see human beings as friendly protectors because our presence drives the gulls away. The puffins come right out. They'll walk right over the yellow ropes and intermingle with us as they go from one area to another. And you'll see that, the very small number of human beings that make trips out here on these guided trips will be able to sit for a considerable time and just see how puffins live and how these different species intermingle in the nesting areas because they're arranged just in really in layers. Their nests are in these cliffs, and we'll be able to observe from the main island looking out to the small rocky outcroppings shown here, for instance, in the picture in the upper left. These seabirds engaging with one another, squawking at each other, flying towards each other to drive, for instance, one another away from their nests. And during the guided tour, we'll be able to visit Fingal's Cave, which is a cave formed on an island where there are large basaltic rock formations. These columnar formations are things that we'll be able to walk and hike right through, and go right into the cave and see it up close. During the trip, we'll be able to explore the area where basking sharks, where they graze on the plankton and other species there. And so we'll have opportunities to see up close, to look for whales and dolphin seals, uh, as well as the basking sharks, which I'm very excited to see, never having seen them yet in person. And so I have spent, together with members of my family, 3 months on the last trip in the British Isles in these particular areas. And what I've done is visited all the areas that we'll be going to. And so I have firsthand familiarity of how to negotiate a trip through with a group and establish relationships with various groups, including, for instance, the Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust. And so we'll have a planned program where we can learn what it is that they've been studying and what they have been pushing for, which are marine protected areas. We'll be studying the ethics, law, and policy that really creates these areas. And looking at this worldwide, this global map, we see that quite a number of areas have gotten varying degrees of protection, marked in green, less protected zones, and marked in blue, highly or fully protected zones. And what we see is if we look along the coast of the United States, there are some lesser protected areas, but very, very few areas have gotten significant protection. And if we compare that, for instance, to the areas around the British Isles, there's just much greater areas that have been protected under UK law and policy. And what we'll be doing is comparing laws and policies of the UK to the United States to consider how we might change American law and policy to create greater protections. And we'll be learning from this comparison of laws of different countries, what might be done to create really for marine environments what has been done successfully in many areas for the protection of terrestrial areas, but the creation of parks, such as national parks and state parks, forest service areas, BLM areas, as well as wilderness areas in, for instance, the United States. The protection of terrestrial areas in the United States really served as a model for the creation of wilderness and park areas elsewhere in the world. And that terrestrial model is now being applied to the creation of marine protected areas. And that's what we'll be focusing on in our studies. What we'll be doing is that prior to the course, we'll be reading books, for instance, by selections from Thoreau's Walden, Leopold's Sand County Almanac, Robin Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass, but also we'll be highlighting selections from Enric Sala's The Nature of Nature. Enric Sala in particular is a marine biologist, a marine ecologist, and we'll be looking closely at selections from his work because he has taken his lifetime of doing research as a marine ecologist. He's taken that and he's really transitioned to become a conservation biologist, where he has partnered with National Geographic as a designated explorer and scientist to advocate going around the world the creation of more marine protected areas. Similarly, what I've shared with many students already is a trailer from a forthcoming in 2025, a movie from National Geographic and partners as part of the Ocean series. And what they're focusing on in this forthcoming installment is marine protected areas and what they're doing by legal protection to increase the health of many areas of marine ecology. And what we'll be doing during the course for the main assignment is having read selected texts beforehand and done some research, as we'll each pick a topic of personal interest. We'll work together. I'll advise individual students to help think about areas of individual interest where a student will engage. And working together, we'll each tell stories along the way, as David Attenborough narrates in this National Geographic Ocean series. We'll narrate our own story and we'll draw on the readings that we have studied to think about the issues that we face when it comes to protection of these environments. This program directly supports quite a number of majors and career paths. I'll highlight some here. They include, for instance, those that are engaged in pre-law studies of one kind or another, such as philosophy and PPL majors, as well as criminal justice and political science majors. Those studying environmental sciences and environmental studies, conservation and marine biology, and in particular, those are very much interested in environmental policy, because it'd be a great series of case studies that we'll be looking at based on your own interests about how to draw on law and policy, how to change them to give better protection to various ecosystems. With that summary of what we'll be doing, where we'll be going, I hope I've answered some of the initial questions that might occur. But over the course of the next few weeks, we'll be having both in-person and through Zoom meetings where you'll be able to ask further questions about the classes being offered, about areas that you might be particularly interested in seeing, things that we'll be doing, and we'll answer additional questions you might have. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this first presentation, and I look forward to meeting you. I encourage you, again, to look at the flyer. If you go back to the beginning, you'll see a QR code at the beginning. That will take you to the website for the Center of International Education at NAU. It'll take you to the particular page for this course where we have the summer study abroad programs. And for this course, you'll be able to start an application. I encourage all students who are interested to get one started and to make progress in that application, and then to think, as you're filling it out and making progress, about your questions that occur as you make a decision. Submit that application when you're ready to commit the application fee. Just starting an application and getting your questions answered, that requires no fee whatsoever. But by at least starting one, you'll be in the system for me to see, as well as for CIE staff, including Amanda Williamson, who is assisting as the representative from CIE for this particular program. But you'll also be able to reach out then to the CIE staff and responsible for various scholarships and other forms of support that are available to make this program possible. And so I encourage you to learn about the scholarships. There are quite a number available for this program, including some with very high rates of students having success in getting those scholarships. And so some have success rates of well over 50%. And so I encourage students to apply, to learn about the scholarships, and to see whether it's something which is possible for them to engage in this summer. Look forward to meeting you in person and talking with you more. Thanks.